I am normally much happier to see you guys. Today I'm actually sitting down with you because I have an update on the Orrin and Orson West case. So many of you have been messaging me to let me know that there has been an update, and I of course plan to talk to you guys about it. It's a very sad one. I've been invested in this case since it first came out in December of 2020, and I couldn't believe how long it was taking for any updates. There was no information coming out about this case whatsoever. I remember I was checking it. I mean, every month would go by and I would look it up and I would check in, and there were no updates. And for the last over a year now, there's been nothing. I do have other videos on my channel about Orrin and Orson. I would recommend going to watch those. I'll link them for you below before watching this one. Orrin and Orson West were boys living in California City who were reported missing by their adoptive parents in December of 2020. Their adoptive parents are a couple named Jacqueline and Trezell West, and they were living allegedly with Jacqueline and Trezell as well as 4 other siblings, 2 of which were also adopted and 2 of which were Jacqueline and Trezell's biological children. Orrin and Orson were 2 beautiful, bright little boys. They were spunky, they were lively, and they actually still had a relationship with their mother, their biological mother, who would come to see them, and the boys would tell her that they didn't like their adoptive parents, that Trezell would walk around in military gear, that they just weren't happy in their adoptive parents' home, but their biological mother had lost custody of them. So they were in a situation where they were living with first foster parents, and then Jacqueline and Trezell became the adoptive parents of Orrin and Orson. When they were reported missing in December, there was a lot of controversy around the case. A lot of people were suspicious of Jacqueline and Trezell. And now we have confirmation that many of our suspicions were correct. The story that the couple told the news and police was that the 2 boys were in the backyard playing with chalk, that Trezell was watching them as he was moving firewood, and then he stepped inside the house for a second. When he came back, the back gate was open and the 2 boys were gone. That was the narrative that they were trying to sell to everyone. Many people were not buying it, but that was pretty much the latest update. There were a couple things that came out after that, and I'll talk to you guys about that as we go. But it has been determined that Jacqueline and Trezell did murder Orrin and Orson. And it's very sad. I don't really even know what to say, but what I wanted to do with you guys was sit down and look at the press conference that the district attorney, Cynthia Zimmerman, did, where she kind of talks about what they were able to release so far, so that we can look at that together and chat about it. I think most of us are familiar with the facts of the case, so this is an opportunity for us to just kind of dive into what they're releasing now and kind of where we go from here. All right, so let's go ahead and get started.
Good morning. My name is Cynthia Zimmer. I am Kern County's district attorney.
I'm playing it at 1.25
I
speed.
have information about Orrin and Orson West, the 2 young boys who were reported missing from California City 14 months ago. On December 21st of 2020, Orrin was 4 years old and Orson was 3 years old. Their adoptive parents in California City, Trezell West and Jacqueline West, reported to the California City Police Department that the boys had disappeared from their backyard. The California City Police Department began a search for the boys in the area around their home. After a period of time, the FBI joined in the search, as did the California Highway Patrol and search and rescue from the Kern County Sheriff's Department. The community also came out to assist in looking for the boys, but to no avail.
I want to touch on, the community was really involved in this search for Orrin and Orson. I mean, really heavily involved, because it just didn't make sense. There were people standing outside of Jacqueline and Trezell's home screaming, "Where are the boys?" People were just blatantly accusing them of doing it. People were breaking into their house. Like, I remember all of this vividly. People were breaking into their house to look for Orrin and Orson themselves as neighbors. So yeah, like, there was a huge community effort to find them. And I remember AV Watchman posted on his channel, there was a neighbor who had like Ring camera footage that showed the back of Jacqueline and Trezell's house where the backyard was, and there was no sign of Orrin and Orson that day that Trezell and Jacqueline said they were playing with chalk. They were never seen in that backyard. They were never there.
Not located. 1 week later, crucial information came to light that necessitated the involvement of the Bakersfield Police Department and the Kern County District Attorney's Office. Law enforcement worked diligently, hundreds of hours in the next 12 months, looking for the boys. This morning, I'm saddened to announce that the investigation has revealed that Orrin and Orson West are deceased. The investigation has also revealed that they died 3 months before their adoptive parents reported them missing.
What, you guys, do you remember Jacqueline and Trezell moved to California City 3 months before they reported Orrin and Orson West missing in December, and it's now coming to find out that they actually passed away 3 months before that, which means they killed them and then they moved to California City to escape whatever they actually did. It's like insane, because people were speculating this, but everyone was making them seem like they were crazy, but clearly that's what actually happened. Because why else would you move in the same month that your two boys actually died and then report them missing 3 months later? Didn't you think like your 4 other children were going to rat you out at some point, even maybe by accident? Children aren't good liars.
However, I am pleased to announce that this week, the Kern County Grand Jury indicted Trezell and Jacqueline West, the adoptive parents, for the murder of Orrin and Orson West. The indictment charges 5 counts. The first count is murder. Charges them both with murder, with the victim being Orrin West. The second count charges murder, with the victim being Orson West. The third count charges felony child abuse against the person of Orrin West. The fourth count charges child abuse against the person of Orson West. And the fifth count charges false report of an emergency. Naturally, the first 2 counts carry the most time in state prison, murder. It is charged as murder in the 2nd degree. That carries 15 years to life, but with 2 victims, the potential penalty, or the maximum possible penalty, if convicted, is 30 years to life for each defendant, Trezell and Jacqueline West.
I'm wondering why 2nd degree murder. Doesn't 2nd degree murder mean it wasn't premeditated? Let me look it up. 2nd degree murder. 2nd degree murder is where the unlawful killing of another human being was carried out without any form of planning or premeditation. So did they accidentally kill them? The defendant may have intended to cause harm, but did not necessarily intend to kill. So did an accident happen? Were they being abused, maybe? And then it just went too far? The crime must still be carried out with malice for it to be classified as 2nd degree. So yeah, that means like, it's not like they got in a car accident and it was an accident and they tried to cover it up. If there's malice required for 2nd degree, that means a scenario where maybe they were being abused and beaten or starved or something awful like that, and then it just was too much for them.
Now, the grand jury indictment is a formal charging document, and we followed a process in charging them before the grand jury, and that was the district attorney requested that the grand jury convene to hear evidence regarding an indictment that we presented them. The district attorney's office then presented information to the grand jury, and the grand jury found there was sufficient evidence to hold Trezell and Jacqueline West responsible for these murders, and they returned what was called a true bill. So oftentimes we call it they were indicted, but what they did is returned a true bill on the indictment. Department 1 Superior Court judge issued warrants for the arrest of the defendants, and they were arrested last night at about 7 p.m. in Kern County. They are currently in the Kern County Jail waiting for an arraignment on the indictment, which will be tomorrow. There will be no preliminary hearing in this case. because an indictment is a substitute for a preliminary hearing, and this case will proceed directly to trial. The announcement of an indictment in this case probably raises a lot of questions about the facts of the case and what you and the public would like to know. I'm not permitted to go over the facts of the case in this case, but there is something that I'd like to discuss because the facts of the case are...
So this is all just coming out now, but they've been in the process of charging them is what I'm gathering. So I wasn't really familiar with the difference between like a grand jury versus a regular jury, but basically it looks like everything was just sealed and the grand jury determined to charge them. So they haven't been found guilty. They have just been, the grand jury determined that they should be charged.
To be what we produce in the jury trial, because we want both the prosecution and the defense to have a fair trial in this case. However, one of the questions that I'm sure you'd like to know is, have the bodies of Orrin and Orson been found? And the answer to that is no, they have not been found. However, I would like to emphasize that the fact that law enforcement have not found their bodies does not preclude a murder prosecution. As a matter of fact, there have been many hundreds of what we call no-body homicides prosecuted across the United States successfully, and even no-body homicides have resulted.
So if we don't know where they are, that means that these two boys' bodies were destroyed or hidden by Jacqueline and Trezell, their parents, their adoptive parents. That is crazy to think about. That they're being charged and they still haven't told anyone where these two boys are. For crying out loud. Can the biological mother at least have the peace of laying them to rest? This is so twisted and sick.
For convictions in Kern County. I'd like to introduce the people who are standing here with me today, who have been crucial in bringing this case forward. Eric Smith is the person to my right here. Eric Smith is the supervisor of the homicide unit at the DA's office. Next to him is Bryant Estep, also a homicide prosecutor in the DA's office, and these two gentlemen are the people from my office who presented the evidence to the grand jury, and this grand jury hearing began 3 months ago in December of 2020.
So this has all been happening unbeknownst to us.
Mr. Smith, would you like to come say a few words?
On behalf of myself and, of course, Deputy District Attorney Bryant Estep, I would like to thank the allied agencies who worked tirelessly throughout this investigation. That includes also the Kern Regional Crime Lab and also the DA investigators in this case. Kern County law enforcement worked together, at first in an attempt to locate Orrin and Orson West, and as that continued, it turned into the investigation into the disappearance and ultimately the homicide of the two boys. The lead investigative agencies, Bakersfield Police Department, California City Police Department, they worked tirelessly throughout the course of this over a year since this occurred to follow up on leads and complete the investigation. Investigation that was continued even throughout the grand jury hearing. The indictment itself took approximately 3 months. Over 50 witnesses testified during the course of the indictment. Much of those witnesses' testimony was extremely emotional as it related to this case. But that's to be
50 witnesses?
A case that involves the murder of 2 innocent children. Thank you.
That means this was a piece of cake. You know what that means, right? That means this was a piece of cake. If 50 witnesses, now I know a witness can be anyone. Like they could have had one of the children as a witness just to talk about the climate of the household, but like 50 witnesses, that's a lot of freaking people. I bet you some of those witnesses were the neighbors who have been telling people that those kids were never at that house. So when they moved to California City, the neighbors noticed some weird things. The neighbors noticed that there were no kids anywhere around the house running around in the backyard with the other kids. Like they noticed the other 4 children, but they never noticed any 3 and 4-year-old boys. And the neighbors were like, what boys are missing? Like we kind of know what's going on in the neighborhood. What you mean? And another thing that was weird, again, doorbell freaking camera footage. And it was very clear on the camera footage from the neighbors that Orrin and Orson were never in this house. They were never seen on the camera footage. They were never on the camera footage, which means they were never at this house. So Jacqueline and Trezell literally up and moved with their 4 children that they decided to keep alive so that they could escape the reality of what happened here. And people thought that it was weird that they did this interview, but they were like crying crocodile tears. Like it was such fake remorse, like fake concern. They were doing this interview, Trezell standing like this the whole time, like he is somewhere better to be. Jacqueline's not really emotional. They didn't participate in any of the searches for Orrin and Orson, and they claimed that they didn't participate because they were worried for their lives. Man, if my kid is out here actually missing, I don't care what I gotta get through to go look for them. I'm gonna go look for them. People felt weird about these two from the very beginning. And one of the neighbors did an interview where he said he saw Trezell back there. They had like this big van. It's like the Chevy Express vans with the double doors in the back. They backed the van all the way up to the front door of their house so that you couldn't see what they were putting in and out of the van. And another thing, I remember, because I did research on this case back when it was happening, police did a full investigative sweep of their home. So they took all their electronics, they took a bunch of evidence. They dug 2 holes in the backyard about the size of where you would fit human remains. The police brought canines in, and the canines found their scent inside the house, but they didn't find the boys' scent outside the house where Trezell said the boys were playing with the chalk. So they were literally never there, you guys. So this couple, they've been charged 2 counts of second-degree murder, 2 counts of felony child abuse, and then false report of an emergency. They had the nerve to file this report when they knew Orrin and Orson were already gone. That is so freaking sick. 3 months? And I wonder, like, what trauma is this going to cause to the other kids in the house? So they have 2 biological and 2 adoptive kids. Did the children, like, did they know what was happening? How are you going to keep police away from the truth when you have 4 other kids? Kids are going to slip up and tell the truth at some point. Like, oh yeah, I haven't seen Orrin and Orson in like 3 months. And then they might accidentally do it. Or they might accidentally say, oh, I miss Orrin, without even thinking, right? Because kids they don't have the cognitive ability to remember to lie. So I'm just wondering why Jacqueline and Trezell thought that they were just going to get away with 2 human beings just poof, disappear. The second degree is the interesting thing. I'm wondering if there was some sort of a situation happening and then it just kind of got out of hand and they didn't actually intend to end the boy's life. Wow, you guys, this is very sad. I'm not going to watch any more of the press conference. I actually watched it already. It's pretty much repetition of the same thing over and over again because they can't give any information. So they pretty much said they're going to release all the information during the trial. So anything involving the investigation, the case, what they found so far, they can't tell us any of that. So we really don't know much, except unfortunately that the boys are believed to have been passed away 3 months before they were reported missing, you guys. That's insane. That is insane. A grand jury determined this, which means they had to sit there. It's not what we consider like what we would understand as a normal trial. Grand jury, everything's sealed. It's a little bit different. It's over a longer period of time. But there was a jury that determined that, yeah, these 2 should probably be charged. That there is sufficient evidence to bring them, to charge them in a court of law. It's very weird watching that initial interview now because I remember when I watched it where Jacqueline and Trezell were like saying we just want our boys back. I remember watching it and kind of feeling weird, like something wasn't quite right. But you know, you never want to be that person who wrongly accuses somebody of something. So now I guess we just have to wait and see. I am really curious to see this evidence broken down, like piece by piece. I really want to see what they found. There's got to be phone records, text messages, and the police are working on this for a while. They didn't bring them in front of the grand jury until a year later, which means they really got a case against them. Like they didn't just throw something together. This is going to be serious. This is going to be real. So I'm definitely going to follow this for updates. I am very brokenhearted about this. Discarded, and we have no idea where they are. So a no-body homicide can be charged. You can be found guilty for murder and a no-body homicide. But I really hope it doesn't have to get to that point. Like, I really hope Jacqueline and Trezell come around. Like, if they don't come around to this and tell people where Orrin and Orson are, that would just be the lowest of the low. Their other kids are in child protective services right now. So the cycle continues of keeping them in, of more children going in the system. I'm going to be sure to keep a close eye on this case, to keep a close watch. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments down below. And I have an upload coming for you guys tomorrow. It's been like a video that's probably a month in the making now. It's been some time that I've been working on this one. So it should be up tomorrow as long as I get final approval from the family that I'm working with on it. If not tomorrow, maybe Monday at the absolute latest, but definitely stay tuned for that. And thank you guys for hanging out with me today. This is so very sad. I'm just like, I don't even remember how to end my videos at this point because I'm very bent up about this. Tell me your thoughts below. All right, you guys, I'll talk to you in the next video. Peace.